Picture this with me. Rain's hammering hard against a little Brooklyn apartment window. Inside, young mom Alara rocks her newborn twins, Luna and Leo, her own tears mixing with theirs. Every bone in her body's trembling with exhaustion. Then, the front door creaks open. Standing there, Sebastian, the man who promised her forever. The man who cradled these babies when they were minutes old. But tonight, his eyes aren't warm, they're hollow, dead, like a ghost wearing her lover's face. He steps inside, rainwater dripping off his coat, and whispers 3 words that cut the air. We need talk. Her world stops. Can you feel that? The floor vanishing under your feet? Everything you love, your home, your family, every dream, shattering in one breath? Wherever you're listening right now, maybe curled up in bed or riding the subway home, if this moment just stole your breath too, tell us where in the world you're watching from. Let her know she's not alone. Because listen close, deep in Alara's broken heart, a tiny spark still flickers. A stubborn little flame that refuses to die. And that spark? That's where her war begins. Let's rewind to where it really began. Not some fairy tale meeting. No, this started in the belly of the beast. The Kensington Resort's annual charity gala. Crystal chandeliers. Billionaires sipping champagne like water. Alara Hayes, a brilliant but broke landscape architect, was hired to transform the hotel's dead rooftop into a living oasis. She was up there past midnight, dirt smudged on her cheek, wrestling with a stubborn olive tree when he appeared. Sebastian Kensington, heir to it all, silk tuxedo, hair like polished gold. You're murdering that tree, he'd laughed, rolling up his sleeves to help. She'd hated him instantly, hated how his hands, soft, uncalloused, knew exactly how to cradle the roots. Hated how he brought her lukewarm coffee at 3 a.m. while she worked. Hated how his laughter made her forget he was a king, and she was just the gardener. But love? It doesn't ask permission. It grew wild between them, secret kisses in greenhouse shadows. Plans whispered against her neck. We'll build gardens, not empires. Then came the day he took her to her. Genevieve Kensington, Sebastian's mother, a woman so cold, orchids withered in her presence. She didn't even look at Alara. Just eyed the soil under her nails and said, "Cute. But weeds don't belong in rose gardens, Sebastian." And just like that, Alara became a problem to be pulled. Fast forward to that rain-lashed nursery. Sebastian standing there, a ghost of the man who'd planted dreams with her. Mothers merging with the Dubois group, he rasped, voice cracking like dry earth. If I don't marry their CEO's daughter by spring, I lose everything. The company, the fortune, my name. Alara's knees buckled. She clutched Leo tighter, his tiny fist gripping her thumb like an anchor. Look at them, she begged, tears choking her. This is everything. Sebastian didn't look at Luna's sleeping face. Didn't touch Leo's curls. Just stared at the rain sliding down the window like liquid shame. Some roots, he whispered, turning toward the door, poison the soil. And just like that, he vanished into the rain-soaked night. Alara collapsed onto the nursery floor, the wool of Sebastian's abandoned scarf still smelling like his cologne. She stuffed the fabric into her mouth, bit down until her jaw ached, trying to choke back the scream tearing up from her soul. A scream that tasted like blood and broken promises. Through the thin apartment walls, she could hear Mrs. Henderson next door singing a lullaby to her own child. The normalcy of it shattered her. Meanwhile, 30,000 feet above the Atlantic, Sebastian Kensington accepted a crystal flute of 1945 Dom Perignon. The private jet's engines roared like the anger he'd left behind. When his phone lit up with a photo, Alara laughing in a sunflower field, her hair full of golden hour light, he hesitated. Just for a heartbeat, just long enough to remember the exact sound of her whisper. We'll grow old right here. Then his thumb moved, deleted, erased her smile forever. Below him, the ocean churned like Alara's sobs. Above, only cold, empty stars. The days after Sebastian left didn't just pass, they bled. Each sunrise was a fresh wound. Money evaporated faster than milk in a bottle. First went the flat-screen TV, sold for a fraction of its worth to a college kid who didn't haggle. Then the espresso machine Sebastian bought her for their anniversary, its chrome surface still gleaming like a cruel joke. She carried it to the pawn shop in a laundry basket, the twins strapped to her chest an afraid carrier. $50, the clerk shrugged, already stacking it beside stolen bikes and wedding rings. But the worst was the emerald necklace. Her grandmother Maria's most sacred treasure, smuggled out of Poland in a loaf of bread during the war. Alara remembered tracing its teardrop shape against Nana's throat as a child, listening to stories of partisans and courage. Now, in the sour light of Gold Star Pawn, the man behind the bulletproof glass rolled it between nicotine-stained fingers. "Good stones," he grunted. "But no papers." 300. Leo's fever-flushed face flashed behind her eyes, his tiny gasps as he struggled to breathe that morning. She tasted bile. "That necklace," she whispered, voice cracking, "survived the Gestapo." The man's eyes flickered, not with sympathy, but irritation. "Lady, I sell guns and gold. Not history. Take it or leave it." Her knuckles whitened on the counter. Somewhere in Warsaw, Maria had traded her wedding band for a smuggler's promise. Now Alara traded her legacy for amoxicillin and a sack of rice. "Deal," she choked, flinching as the register's cha-ching echoed like a gunshot in the silent shop. Job hunting became a gauntlet of shame. At Evergreen Architects, a silver-haired partner stared at her portfolio, once praised for transforming derelict lots into urban forests, and sighed. "Your gap in employment is problematic. Our deadlines demand midnight oil. Can you burn it with infants?" At Skyline Designs, a woman in a razor-sharp blazer eyed the spit-up stain on Alara's collar. "We need architects present in mind and body, not distracted." She slid the resume back like contaminated waste. The final blow came at Harborview Studios. Alara had scraped together $40 for a sitter, only to have Luna scream inconsolably the moment she stepped into the elevator. The receptionist's smile froze as wails echoed through the glass-walled office. "Perhaps," she said coldly, blocking the doorway, "you should reschedule when your situation stabilizes." That night, Alara sat on the fire escape, rejection letters swirling like funeral confetti in the alley below. She counted $1.37 in nickels, the last coins rattling in a mason jar labeled "Dreams." Nights were endless purgatory. Luna would wake screaming from teething pain just as Leo drifted off. Alara paced the dark kitchen, bare feet flinching on cracked linoleum, rocking them in aching arms. "Shish, my stars," she'd murmur, voice sandpaper rough, "Mama's got you." But the promises felt hollow. How could she protect them? She couldn't even afford window screens to keep out the June mosquitoes. One sweltering midnight, she found Luna's cheek swollen with bites. Alara sank to the floor, pressing her forehead to the buzzing refrigerator door. Its hum drowned her sobs, until Leo's cry sliced through. Not his usual fussy whimper. A ragged, whistling shriek. She scrambled to his crib. His skin burned like a stove coil. 104.9 degrees. Terror, cold and absolute, locked her lungs. Rain sheeted down as she ran. Luna bounced against her hip in the sling, wailing. Leo lay limp in her other arm, his breath's shallow puffs against her neck. 6 blocks to Mercy General. No umbrella, no stroller. Her sneakers slapped through flooded gutters, each step a prayer. Not him. Please not him. In the ER's blinding fluorescence, a nurse snapped, "Insurance card?" Alara's soaked clothes dripped on the polished floor. "I lost it." The woman's eyes narrowed. "Address?" Alara's mouth moved. "The shelter on Pine Street." The lie scalded her tongue. They shoved her into a curtained bay. Leo's tiny body looked skeletal under the harsh lights as they strapped monitors to his chest. A resident frowned at the readout. Oxygen saturation's dropping. When did symptoms start? This morning. He was just fussy. This morning? The doctor's pen froze. With a fever this high in an infant? Every hour is a gamble. He ripped open Leo's onesie, exposing the blue-tinged skin over his ribs. "If you'd waited till morning." The unspoken word, "dead," hung in the antiseptic air. Alara's knees buckled. She collapsed onto the frigid tile, fingers clawing at the grout lines, those ugly, branching cracks that split the floor like a dried-up riverbed. And there, in the shadow of beeping machines and judgment, she heard it. Not the clock's metallic tick-tick-tick. Not Leo's wheezing, but a voice from her marrow, guttural, ancient, and ferocious. Enough. She crawled to the cot, pressing her lips to Leo's fiery temple. "Hear me, universe," she snarled, tears salting his skin. "If we walk out of this hell, I'll make beauty from these ruins. I'll plant gardens in the cracks." The clock thundered on. "But now?" Alara's heart hammered back, a war drum in the dark. Alara never expected to hear from the sharp-eyed woman at the clinic again. Days bled into nights at her thrift store sewing machine, the needle punching holes in fabric and her dreams with equal force. Then, deep in the hollow hours of 2 a.m., as she bent over a cherry blossom motif, her phone erupted. Not a chime, not a ping, a digital earthquake. The screen exploded with light and sound, a relentless barrage of chimes, buzzes, and vibrations that shook the table. Notifications piled atop notifications like frenzied birds battering a window. Heart in her throat, she grabbed the device. There it was. A public post from Anya Petrova, the woman who'd studied Luna's leggings with such intensity. No hashtags, no handles, just stark, blazing words. Today I met a magician. A Brooklyn mother stitching miracles from discarded fabric. My daughter wears her creation. Stormcloud leggings that feel like courage woven into cloth. Sustainable, stunning, soul-shaking. This is the revolution we've been waiting for, hidden in plain sight. Beneath the words, a photo seared into Alara's retinas. Luna. Not posed or polished, but caught mid-shuffle in that bleak clinic lobby. Fluorescent lights haloed her wild curls. One small leg peeked out, showcasing the lightning bolt streaking down her calf. The peeling linoleum, the weary mothers in plastic chairs. It was all there, raw and unflinching. The caption stole her breath. True beauty only grows where there have been cracks. Her phone buzzing uncontrollably like angry bees. The onslaught never stopped. Each new alert vibrated up her arm like an electric shock. Order confirmed. Stormcloud leggings, size 2T. Order confirmed. Dandelion jumpsuit 6 months. Order confirmed. Cherry blossom romper 12 months x3. On and on they came. A tidal wave of faith from strangers. Alara's needles slipped from her fingers. The half-embroidered cherry blossom tumbled to the floor, trailing crimson thread like a vein. Outside, the city slept. But here in this dim apartment smelling of warm cotton in desperation? The world had found her. And it was roaring her name, asterisk. Dawn crept into the apartment like a shy visitor, blinking at the transformation. Where a living room once stood, a jungle of thrifted fabric now reigned. Bolts of linen spilling off chairs, denim waterfalls cascading from shelves. Cardboard fortresses rose where the coffee table used to be, towers of hope waiting to be shipped to Portland, Mumbai, Paris. Little Luna sat buried waist deep in a snowdrift of ivory cotton scraps, giggling as threads clung to her curls like fairy floss. Nearby, Leo brought his tiny foot down again and again. Whump whump whump, sealing packing tape with the solemn focus of a blacksmith forging armor. Alara moved through the beautiful wreckage in a daze. Her trembling fingers scrawled addresses on repurposed cereal boxes, each inscription a whispered prayer. To Maya in Portland. May you dance in thunderstorms. To Javier in Miami. Chase every butterfly. Midnight found her slumped before the old singer, its once stubborn wheel now spinning with feverish purpose. The rhythm had changed, no longer the gravelly cough of its resurrection, but a deep, hungry rattle that vibrated in her bones. Blisters wept on her fingertips. Every muscle screamed rebellion. Yet as she pressed her palm to the machine's shuddering flank, she felt no exhaustion. Only the relentless pulse of roots tearing through concrete, cracking foundations, reaching for the sun. The higher wild bloom soared, the darker the shadows that gathered beneath its wings, and success became a target painted on Alara's back. The first blow fell quietly, a cancellation email from her biggest buyer, citing ethical concerns she didn't understand until she searched Wild Bloom online. There, screaming from her cracked phone screen, child labor empire, inside Wild Bloom's Brooklyn sweatshop. Grainy photos showed Luna chewing fabric scraps, forced textile sorting, and Leo curled in a cardboard box, filthy living conditions. Their innocence weaponized. That night, a distorted voice hissed through the landline. Stop sewing. Or the twins get hurt. The click echoed like a coffin ceiling. By dawn, vultures gathered. Paparazzi clustered at the alley mouth, cameras clicking like rattlesnakes. When she cracked the blinds, flashes detonated, white lightning that sent Leo screaming behind the sofa, clawing at his eyes. They stalked her to the bodega. Does exploiting children fund your latte? The playground. Show us the kids' calluses. Cornering her at the clinic until she swung her diaper bag like a club. roaring, "Touch them and I end you." A threat that became tomorrow's headline. Then came the envelope, thick as a gravestone, smelling of bergamot and arrogance. The Kensington crest gleamed above words that stole her breath. "Cease using botanical motifs. Our trademark since 1987. Comply or be crushed." Beneath it lay a brochure, Kensington's new wildflower collection, featuring her cherry blossoms on $3,000 dresses. Genevieve hadn't just noticed her, she'd skinned her art and worn it as a trophy. Rain lashed the windows as the neighbor's TV blared. Child Services is investigating the so-called mompreneur. Alara sank into unsold fabric, the legal paper crumbling in her fist. Leo crawled into her lap, holding a snapped needle from her broken singer. Mama's broken? That tiny question shattered her last defense. She stumbled to the silent machine, her battlefield, her altar, and with a scream, pried open its rusted belly. Gears spilled like innards. And there, hidden in its bones, her grandmother's final gift. A swatch of linen embroidered with phoenix feathers in fire gold thread. That night, she sewed not with machine, but with bare hands and bloodied fingers. No more dandelions, no more storms. With every stab of the needle, she whispered their names: Luna, Leo, Maria. Every woman told she's too broken to rise. Crimson blooms spread on the fabric as she stitched wings wide enough to shield her children. A phoenix rising from ashes stained with her own blood. At dawn, she held it to the window. Paparazzi flares ignited the gold thread into true flame. "See this, Genevieve?" she murmured as cameras devoured the symbol. Fire can't be trademarked. The lawsuits would come. The shadows would deepen. But in the ruins of her apartment, a golden bird spread its wings, and Alara Hayes smiled like a woman who'd just learned how to burn. 3 days after the phoenix tunic went viral, Genevieve struck harder. A court summons arrived. Kensington vs. Hayes, trademark infringement. Legal fees would bankrupt her by morning. That night, as sleet hissed against the windows, Alara gathered her warriors. Not lawyers, not PR teams, but Maya, the single mom from Queens who sewed wild blooms dandelion hems between night shifts. Fatima, the Syrian refugee whose embroidery hid bullet hole scars on the stormcloud leggings. Lucia, whose infant slept in a fabric sling as she stitched cherry blossoms. At dawn, Alara aimed her phone's cracked camera at their work table. "Livestream starting now," she whispered. For 1 raw hour, the world watched, steam rising from ancient irons as Maya smoothed seams. Lucia's baby giggling at spools of thread. Fatima's needle dancing like a hummingbird over linen. All while Alara's voice, calm as a blade, recounted their truth. These hands build futures, not sweatshops. When Fatima lifted her blouse to show scars from a bombed-out Aleppo tailor shop, where they truly enslaved children, the comments exploded. Not with anger, with salvation. Thousands flooded the feed. Garment workers in Dhaka sharing pay stubs. Navajo grandmothers beating resistance on reservations. Swedish teens stitching climate protests onto jackets. By noon, #MOTHERSARMY wasn't trending. It was rewriting the internet. News clips spliced Kensington's $5,000 wildflower dresses with footage of Genevieve's Indonesian sweatshops. Headlines bled together. Kensington stock crashes 40%. Investors flee. Ethical fashion erupts. In her penthouse, Genevieve would be watching her empire crumble. But Alara? She closed the livestream, pressed her forehead to Fatima's, and whispered into the silence, "Now we rise." The dust hadn't even settled from Genevieve Kensington's very public downfall when the past walked back in. Alara knelt on the sun-warmed floor of her flagship store, her fingers gently smoothing a phoenix wing onto a child's tunic. Gold thread caught the afternoon light, each stitch a tiny victory. Luna, now 6, sat cross-legged nearby, carefully sorting buttons into mason jars. Leo, her twin brother, stacked fabric swatches like wobbly towers, his tongue peeking out in concentration. The air smelled of lavender detergent and hard-won peace. Then, the chime. Not the bright, cheerful ding of customers. This was a fractured sound, a tired, metallic sigh. Sebastian stood silhouetted in the doorway, Manhattan's glare haloing his slumped frame. The man who once wore $1,000 suits like armor now looked hollow. His shirt was rumpled, collar askew. Stubble shadowed a face that seemed carved from gray stone. His eyes, those bright blue eyes Alara once drowned in, were empty wells. Alara. Her name scraped from his throat, rough and rusted, like a key unused for years. She didn't stand, didn't drop her needle, just watched as his gaze drifted past her, landing on the massive dandelion mural exploding across the back wall, her very first design, now painted in triumphant gold. He took a shaky step inside. His hand reached out, trembling, and brushed a painted petal. "Mother disowned me," he whispered. The words hung like cobwebs. "The board, they voted me out. Took everything. The penthouse, the trust fund, even the Kensington name." His voice cracked. The Dubois merger collapsed when the scandal hit. Camille left the next day. He swallowed hard, staring at his own reflection in the polished concrete floor. "I have nothing." The silence that followed was thick with ghosts. Leo's first wobbly steps, taken while Sebastian toured Dubai resorts. Luna's first word, "Mama," echoing through an empty apartment. The slam of that Brooklyn door 6 years ago, sealing their future without him. Alara set her needle down slowly. The click against the hardwood was deafening. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft as grave soil, yet it filled the vast space. "The night Luna's fever hit 105 degrees, I called you 17 times. She was seizing in my arms, her tiny body burning up. I didn't know if she'd live through the ambulance ride." Alara's gaze never wavered. "You were at the Kensington Gala, toasting your merger with champagne. The next day, your assistant emailed me a signed divorce waiver." Sebastian flinched as if struck. She rose, her simple linen dress pooling around her like liquid armor. "You chose skyscrapers over scraped knees. Stock portfolios over bedtime stories. Board meetings over," her voice hardened, "over Leo's first day of kindergarten." He asked why all the other kids had dads holding their hands. Leo, sensing the tension, abandoned his fabric tower and pressed himself against Alara's leg. Luna watched, her button jar forgotten. Sebastian's hand fell from the mural. "I didn't know." "You didn't ask," Alara cut him off. 6 years. Not one letter. Not one call to see if they were alive. A tear escaped, not for him, but for the father her children never had. "You didn't lose us, Sebastian. You traded us. For a legacy that turned to ash. For a mother who discarded you like yesterday's news." She took a breath, the truth sharp and clean. "You're not a man who lost everything. You're a stranger standing in the ruins of choices you made." A single tear carved through the dust on Sebastian's cheek as he looked at Leo's small hand clutching Alara's skirt. At Luna's wary eyes, eyes that held no recognition of him. Then, without a word, he turned. The door chime wept, a single, mournful note, as he vanished into the city's roar. Alara knelt, picked up her needle, and as Leo whispered, "Who was that sad man, Mama?" She pulled gold thread through linen, stitching a new feather onto the phoenix's wing. Her hands didn't shake. Her voice stayed steady. "Just a ghost, my love. Passing through." The rain had finally stopped over Paris, leaving the city of lights glistening like a tear-streaked cheek as Alara watched from the wings of the Maison de la Mode runway, her heart pounding not with fear but with fierce pride. Luna and Leo, now 8 and radiant under the spotlights, walked hand in hand in the collection they'd co-designed. Leo in a jacket alive with embroidered sound waves that seemed to pulse with actual music. Luna in a dress where dandelions transformed mid-skirt into rockets blasting toward the hem. Cameras flashed like electric storms, but Alara saw only their concentrated smiles, the way Leo's fingers tightened around his sister's when the applause swelled. Backstage, as she smoothed a stray thread on Leo's collar, the Time photographer captured it, her work-roughened hands gentle on his shoulders. Luna beaming beside them with ink-stained fingers still clutching her sketchbook. Tomorrow, the world would see that cover, Green Innovator of the Year. The mother WHO sowed hope from ashes, and beneath it, the smaller, sweeter truth. Her twins designed the revolution. Weeks later, back in their sunlit Brooklyn studio where bolts of fabric cascaded like waterfalls, Alara found Leo wrestling with holographic thread at their scarred oak table. "It fights me, Mama," he grumbled, and she knelt beside him, guiding his small hands. "Like your curls in the wind, remember? Gentle twists." Across the room, Luna painted galaxies onto linen with indigo dye, murmuring, "This nebula's for the girl in Nairobi who sent us star maps. She sees more darkness than light, but look," she swirled silver into blue, "she found Orion's sword." Alara's throat tightened. This was the true harvest. Not the Tokyo flagship opening next week, where cherry blossoms would rain through doors onto a mural stitched from thousands of handwritten notes from survivors. You gave me courage to leave, my son wears your hope. We bloom because you did. Nor the London store in Chelsea where she'd soon stand before a floor-to-ceiling window. Her reflection overlapping with ghosts. Her younger self sobbing on a Brooklyn floor with a feverish Leo. Sebastian's hollow silhouette in her doorway. Genevieve's ice-pick gaze. No, it was here, in this moment. Leo's triumphant, got it. As the thread surrendered, Luna's constellation blooming wet and bright, the quilt on the wall growing patch by patch from mothers in Jakarta, Detroit, Aleppo. As twilight gilded the London store's opening ribbon, a strip of recycled fire hose from her first studio, Alara pressed her palm to the cool glass. Outside, a single dandelion cracked through Mayfair concrete. And she understood, as the city's murmur faded into a hushed peace. They told her she was too broken to build anything beautiful. So she planted gardens in the ruins. Watered them with 3 a.m. tears and recycled dreams. Let her children's laughter be the sunlight. And when the world said, stay down, she whispered to the cracks, grow. For every weed they called her, 8,000 forests answered. Alara's journey began in brokenness. Abandoned with newborn twins in a rain-lashed Brooklyn apartment. But she refused to let her cracks define her. She stitched wings from thrifted curtains. Watered hope with 3 a.m. tears. And today, she's building forests where they once paved despair. But this isn't just her story, warriors. It's yours too. That heartbreak you carry? That dream they said was too wild? That pain you're stitching into purpose? That's your horsepower. So right now, wherever you are, I want you to pound that comment section like Alara pounded her sewing machine. Tell me, how did you turn pain into power? Did you bloom after loss? Build a business from burnout? Find strength in surrender? Your story might be the torch that guides someone through their darkest night. And while you're there, tap that subscribe button, because next week, we're diving into how Luna and Leo designed Wild Bloom's sold-out Phoenix collection at just 8 years old. Trust me, you'll need tissues and a fire extinguisher for this blaze of glory. Fire hit the bell so you don't miss it. This is Heartfelt Tales TV, signing off with one truth. Your scars aren't stains. They're the map to your revolution. Now go make them proud.